Hi, my name is Jill Monroe, a member of the African American Film Critics Association. Today, we are excited to be talking with the cast and creatives behind the Apple TV Plus series, The Lady in the Lake, Natalie Portman, Moses Ingram, and showrunner, executive producer, and director, Alma Har'el. We're going to get things kicked off by introducing the members of the AAFCA. We have Karan Lenore Kelly, Derek Dunn, Nancy Green, Carolyn Hines, Michael Swell, Ruben Pitaya Regalia, and Samuel Leggett.
I saw you once, Maddie Schwartz. Before any of this began, I saw you. Alive. I was Cleo Johnson. But in my death, I became the lady in the lake.
I'm the one who found her in the lake. I can't just be someone's wife.
You never wanted to do anything else.
I never tried to do anything else. Did you ever wonder why?
Your writing dreams ruined your life. Now you wanted those same dreams to rewrite it. But why did you need to drag my dead body into it?
How did you know?
Know what?
Where to find her?
My wife is a lot of things. There's one thing that she's not. That's foolish.
This is not your high school newspaper, Maddie. People's lives are at stake.
So what you gonna do? You gonna get that money and leave everybody behind you? I don't know. I don't know. Dreams push you down till you drown.
To dream the impossible dream. To bear
You wanted to tell everyone's story,
with unbearable sorrow.
but your own.
To run where the brave dare not go. This is my quest to follow that star. No matter how hopeless, no matter how far, to be willing to die so that honor and justice may live.
Every time someone turns up dead in that lake, it does seem to lead to you.
The unreachable star.
Hi, Michael Sowell from Washington, D.C. I'll just say, first, congratulations with the show. It took me into a journey, watching all the episodes and in a place I did not expect myself to be. And I just want to say to you, Natalie and Moses, like your characters, at the end of the season, I reflected just as a male viewer that a level of grace and understanding I had to give to both of your characters throughout the show because of your performances and how you guys were, the experiences you were going through, and how kind of challenged myself as a viewer in those times of what I would feel about the actions you guys were taking in those shows. Is there one thing that that you want the audience to know or to take from your performance from the characters that you guys are portraying in this show?
I think one thing I think about when I think about Cleo that I probably would want people to remember is grace. I feel like if we looked at Cleo on paper, you'd be like, I feel like a lot of time the tendency is to look at people and be like, I don't understand how you could do something like that or make a decision like that. And I hope the humanity in Cleo helps people to see that, when people make hard decisions, they make them because they feel like they have to. And they think it's the right thing to do in the moment for whatever it's worth. And so I guess I would say just try to look at people with a little bit more humanity.
Just to jump off of what Moses is saying, I hope that, I guess, Maddie's trajectory reminds me of one of my biggest fears, which is that when you're wrapped up in your own struggle, you don't see others' struggles. And I think that that's something to keep in mind as like a thing to beware of when you're dealing with your own stuff, to keep your eyes open to the person next to you.
Hello, good morning. My name is Caroline Hines for Caroline Talks YouTube and podcast channel. Thank you so much for joining us. And this show, Lady in the Lake, it's very interesting in how tension builds in the show. And I have to give credit. I think a lot of it goes not only to the performances and Alma's directing, but to the score. And the score for this show, I have to say, is like amazing. I love this score because it builds the tension. But I want to ask the three of you about how tension is a theme in this film right from the opening sequence with Maddie and Cleo. Is like this show is filmed with tension and anxiety and pressure and stress, but also a sense of sinister, this sinister sense that runs through almost every interaction that everyone has. Cleo and Maddie in particular, when they're interacting with people, whether it be the men they're with or their parents or their children, there's this underlying sense of like, I could hurt you right now, but I'm not going to because I love you. And I want all three of you to talk about how the show does such a fantastic job of showing how these women have their own sense of not just anxiety, but a sense of violence in them because of how society has forced them into a position where they have no choice but to think these really dark thoughts. And Alma, we'll start with you and then we'll go with Moses and Natalie.
I wish I wrote down what you said because you articulated it so beautifully. So thank you for that. Yeah, I'm a first time showrunner, so I never done TV, definitely never done anything as long, and my goal was to sustain this tension you're speaking about all the way through, and the sinister but way it feels, but under the undercurrent of it that you described, which is informed by the pressure from outside the society, but also like the boiling water, that you're in, and this whole metaphor of like crabs in a bucket, in a bucket, this kind of like a Baltimore thing where people kind of have to almost climb over each other to survive. But if they didn't do that, they wouldn't pull each other in and maybe they would get out. So yeah, everything you said, it was just a matter of really finding ways to always have that. And sometimes Moses would laugh at me because I would come to her and I would say, this is character work, but tension, murder, mystery. And when we wrapped up, she gave me a sweatshirt with that on the back. So yeah, you're right on.
Yeah, I definitely would credit Alma with that totally, because I feel like sometimes, especially with like the nature of crossboarding, it's like where you were before and what's happening next and exactly where you are. And sometimes when it's moving so quickly, it can be hard to keep up with where you are. And just as Alma said, it's just like it's tension, it's murder, it's mystery. It's all right here on the surface. And so, yeah.
I would also credit Alma for creating this like compound stress that these women have, that all of us as women have, that you've just got all of these pressures coming from and obstructions coming from all different directions. And these characters are really at their eruption point when we meet them. They're like, all of these forces are contained and they're about to explode. And it's an incredible place to meet both of them at the beginning of the show.
Thank you. Yeah, we don't normally get to see women play characters with latent murder tendencies or murderation in their hearts. But thank you.
Yeah, I want to add to that, we're dealing with something that is kind of also obviously is inspired by noir, where often the trope is of the femme fatale, this like pretty little thing that might kill you or hurt you, but you never know anything really about it. So it was such a pleasure to have these actresses come and breathe so much life into something that is the opposite of that, And I also just loved what you said about every scene having this idea of I can hurt you and I want to hurt you, but I'm not going to because I love you. And that is really something that I tried to do with every character, not just the main characters.
Derek Dunn, Reviews and Dunn, out of the DC area. So my question is for all three of you ladies. Prior to getting this project, did you read the book? And just in a short stance, how would you say that what's on the screen differs from the book for fans of the book?
Yes, I was first brought the book by Jean-Marc Vallée and Nathan Ross, his producing partner. And they put me together with Alma and said, we want you to do this together. And when we read it, we both came to each other and said, we need, if we want to work on this, Cleo needs to be as major, if not more major a part than Maddie, because her story is really the heart of this. And we need to see her world and her inner workings as much as we can. And Alma did such a beautiful job making that happen, making that transformation. And then we were so blessed to have Moses come embody Cleo and breathe such humanity and truth and complexity to this character.
I was similar situation, was given the book by Jean-Marc Vallée and his partner Nathan Ross, like Natalie said, and was saying Natalie's, attached to it, which kind of blew my mind, the possibility of working with her, and sat down and read the book, and like she said, had those thoughts. And I remember walking with Natalie already in Baltimore, like filming after we, as many people know, had to, from all sorts of logistical reasons, recast the character of Cleo. And Natalie said, well, she has to steal the show. And we said, okay, well, that's the goal, when we were casting, and we're so lucky to have found Moses for it. But the process to get there in terms of the writing was extremely challenging. And we had three incredible Black women writers in our writers' room, Nambi Kelly, Sheila Wilson, and Brianna Vessler, who wrote, and then our EP, Boaz Yakin, and just really deconstructing the book and figuring out how to tell this story in a way that allows us to keep the murder, the mystery, and the tension that the book presents, but really telling the story of Cleo and also the world that we had to build around her to support it. For me, a big part of it was also the numbers game, which kind of informs the economical world that we're living in, and how much, economical, reasoning there is behind some of the pressure and the things that inform this woman's life.
My name is Ruben Peralta from Cocaleca.net. Hi, Natalie. Hi, Alma. Hi, Moses. How special, because this is the first time for Alma and Natalie creating for TV, and Moses being on TV before. What is the biggest difference on creating something for a TV or streaming service than creating something for a feature film? It is because you have more time to develop a character, or as a creator, you have more freedom in the time of narrative.
Natalie, you want to go first, since you're the experienced one between us? I can only speak from my ignorance and discovering it.
Well, you're completely right that you have the luxury of time to explore character, to explore story, and that the stamina required just logistically is much more. But I felt really grateful that Alma approached it in the same way as she would approach a film, both visually and storytelling wise, that she was completely focused on character, completely focused on image, had, this very cinematic vision. It was kind of approaching it as a 7-hour film. And that was really extraordinary. It was, Alma made it inspiring every day, creative every day, and like searching for the marvelous every day.
I promised myself that I won't cry today, so because I keep crying every Q&A. It's ridiculous. Moses, you go ahead.
I don't know. I don't know if I can give an answer to this. I'm so sorry.
It has to be your approach as an actress. It's just different for a movie than a TV show.
Well, I feel like I'm just gonna echo Natalie in part. It's nice to have the time to get into the minutia of a character and the ins and outs and the day to day, if you will. You have time to really build out what it is you have at hand. And so I think that's the thing that I'm grateful for. With Cleo in particular, is that I'm able to really take the time to flesh out everything that Alma has written so beautifully.
I would just say there's a lot more kind of fighting for to do, you know, like I think that I again come from a place that isn't that experienced in any genre really. I kind of hop around and I do things, and I did music videos, commercials, documentaries. I did one feature, but I don't really have like a long breadth of work in any of them, other than more like than actually working with music a lot and visuals, which I've done over the years. So for me, one of the reasons I wanted to do this was kind of to battle the monster of plot, which I've always seen as like a threat to character work and to the nuance and the beauty and the poetry of other things that I managed to do. And, you know, I think like from coming from, again, even when I did documentaries, I infused them with dance sequences and things like that. And the idea was here to fight for a lot of those things that I feel are in my toolbox as a storyteller. And I was thankful every day that, you know, Natalie and Moses are not giving up on me and are kind of continuing the exploration with me, and discovered that how lucky I am to have just artists, you know, on this project that are not afraid to just explore anything really. So it was incredible to have them and the whole cast be willing to kind of go there to places that maybe you wouldn't necessarily go in a murder, tension, mystery kind of tonally thing. And that's it, you know, just a lot of like relentlessness, I would say, is the difference, and a lot longer.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Nancy Green with Film Critique. And I wanted to say, I'm in Los Angeles now, but I was in Baltimore when you guys were filming the show. And I find what you did so fascinating, because one of the things that was always interesting to me was the history there in Baltimore, how so many communities could be going through a lot of the same things, but have different responses to how they deal with problems. And Alma, you mentioned kind of the crabs in a barrel thing. That's a big thing with Maryland. And so I wanted to know if you could all talk about how the characters here are going through their same struggles or similar struggles, and they have to deal with these things differently and separately. And like Natalie said earlier, they're kind of in their own worlds, not paying attention to the struggles of others.
Yeah, I think you know, when I read the book, it was very clear that Laura Lippman, who wrote it, is from Baltimore, and that was actually the part of it that I really loved. But as an immigrant, I have to admit that my view of it was more from The Wire, and The Wire was kind of like informing in a way my idea of it, which I thought was very limited and not fair to what I was seeing is on the page. So I went into this like 4 or 5 months of pretty obsessive research period where I watched tons of newsreels from the time, incredible documentation of the era actually done on film, which is incredible, and a lot of interviews, in-depth interviews with Black women that are existing on a lot of archives from the time, and the Jewish community too. Just trying to kind of figure out how to see Baltimore from the street level and not from the history books. And also was, again, blown away by, first of all, Penn Avenue and the jazz and the culture and the clubs and the, you know, Black economy that existed around the numbers games, but also around other, you know, things that were happening in the city and all of those areas. And the idea was just to kind of bring that to life, really, but not in a way that felt, like I said, historical, but more experiential from the point of view of the people kind of living it, you know. And again, I think even a character like Shell, to me, is there to, in many ways, to also inform us about economical and financial illiteracy, which is something that I think in this country and a lot of Black communities is something that is being discussed right now. And Byron Bowers, my partner, who plays Slappy Dark Johnson, was a huge help to me in sort of bringing that to life, because I thought that it was framing a huge change that happened in Baltimore, you know, once that was taken away and turned into the state lottery. So I wanted to kind of bring all of that stuff into the story, into the background, but weave it into the character so we can kind of see, as you said, that there was a huge amount of history that is unknown to people about this place, you know, both culturally and just from the perspective of living in it, for people that now don't necessarily know that the streets that they walked on was like the Mecca of jazz, you know, in America.
Yeah, no, it's really beautiful. Being from Baltimore, Baltimore is a really beautiful place that I feel like only gets, I mean, not only, but mostly gets like a lot of negative connotation. When I meet people, it is always like, is it really like that? Is it really like that? You know, I grew up hearing all the lore of the way the city used to be, and, you know, how people came from far and wide to experience this place. And Alma did a great job of making Baltimore a character in the show as well. And it was so beautiful for me, and I think it's going to be beautiful for a lot of people to see Baltimore under those kind of lights on Friday.
Yeah, and it was really exciting to have Alma lead us through this historical approach to Baltimore, because I think her documentarian background really was so comprehensive in her research, and she really brought so many things she discovered into the show, like the people who have horses within the city, who, you know, she got the real people in the show. And I think that the Baltimore community brought so much character to the series, and it's like, I feel it's so lucky. The people, I mean, we just got to celebrate this past weekend with many of the cast and crew from Baltimore, and you really feel that the show has its all of that love and truth and soul because of the people from the community that were part of it.
Amen.
Yeah, and I think you did a really fantastic job with that. And I love the accent too, like water, you know, stuff like that. And just seeing the history, because Baltimore does really have a rich history that I think a lot of people don't always take into account. So yeah, and it was lovely done visually, everything.
Thank you so much for speaking about that.
This is Karan Lenoir Kelly from Karanism.com and Love Music Pleasure. And I have to admit, I'm a daughter of Baltimore myself, and Nancy nailed it. But I will say that I love the term searching for the marvelous. And Baltimore has long been known as a tale of two cities. But you nailed so much when it came to just arts and entertainment and the costume design and even the regional dialect. There's a big difference between Pikesville and Baltimore City, even though they're only a few miles away. But the way that we speak, the way that we express ourselves was really important. I want to know, especially getting back to the reference of the crabs in the barrel narrative. I always say in response to that a barrel is not a crab's natural habitat. So I'd like for each of you to speak to how these women decided to come outside of themselves and discover something new, to shed to molt, if you will, like crabs do, and become something different for themselves.
I think it's all about choices, who gets choices and what kind of choices you get. I think what's so beautiful is, like you said, I mean, these two women, they have so much in common and yet are so far apart. Um, like literally, if you think about time as well, like not until like the 70s or so were women allowed to have even a credit card without a man being
74.
attached to it.
Yeah.
74, really? Yeah.
Mhm.
Without a man being attached, and that's crazy. And so their desire to have fully realized lives outside of the roles that they play, um, I think is a driving force that the two women share. But obviously, space, time, the ways in which they can or are allowed to go about it are very different from men and then from each other, us being, you know, the people we were back in the 60s.
I would also, another detail that Alma brought into the story from her historical research was in the numbers game, the way people were using the dream books and were literally betting on their dreams. And I think these two women are betting on their dreams. And it's a thing Alma also in preparation had us do, was work with a dream coach so that we were using our dreams as a way to enter the subconscious of our characters. And she would incorporate it into the work. And so I feel like part of it was also, it takes courage to pay attention to your own dreams. And then it takes humanity to pay attention to other people's dreams as well. And I felt like it was really a balance between those two, exploring these women and their relationship to each other. And I was actually, there's another thing, I was reading a book recently, an amazing book called Martyr by Kaveh Akbar. And he says about dreams, I'm paraphrasing because I'm probably gonna not quote it right, but he says like, nothing is more important to individuals and less important to empires than dreams. And it is really like an amazing thing to focus on, because it is like so crucial to who we are. And like, you can't put a number on it.
I mean, what can I add to this beautiful answer? It's she just said everything I could wish to say. Yeah, everything she said. I'll have what she had. Yeah, I mean, the only thing I can say is really like to add to what Natalie said, to echo it, is like that really like the most, I think, fragile thing in our lives are our dreams in many ways, because nobody else can see them. So trying to make a show that visualizes something that is so personal to each one of these characters, and then also, of course, contrast it with the, you know, feminism versus womanism kind of conflict, you know, in a way that, again, is shown but not explained or talked about, but it's just sort of like really take you into that reality where you have to dream as if your life depends on it.
Well, as we continue this search for the marvelous, I want to thank you for honoring these women in this story. And I want to thank you for honoring my city. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Samuel Legge with JVS Media and Production. Thank you guys so much for being here. I just want to talk towards the visual immersion of this series. Alma, I want you to speak towards the challenges that it took because the thing about it is like every single moment, you kind of feel like you're getting pulled and sucked in. And I wanted you to kind of speak towards some of the challenges you had to go into some of these different specific visuals and different scenes and the way you kind of place in certain people in certain moments. But I also wanted Natalie and Moses to speak towards how fun that was as actors, to kind of allowing your characters to naturally progress through this world that Alma's kind of pulling you into as well. If you guys can speak towards that.
You know, I think as with everything in filmmaking, the challenge is to you have an image or a feeling or a certain tone in your head, or you're exploring a personal mythology of these characters and the subconscious. And it's really about having an incredible team of people bringing it to life, from Lachlan Milne, our cinematographer, JC Molina, our production designer, Shiona Torini, our costume designer, everybody just coming together to execute on something that it's hard, because you kind of constantly try to communicate what you're seeing and having them help you bring it to life. We had a lot of help from each one of these departments, and then it takes actresses like these incredible ladies and the whole cast to step into it and kind of connect with the tone of it, which is really something not every actor can do. I mean, there's actors that are very good at a lot of things, but you'll throw them into something like this and they'll just kind of feel frozen, or just not necessarily kind of swim in it and embody it in the way that they did. And they were just always capable of going anywhere with it. So I'm indebted to a lot of people for the way it looks and the way it feels. And thank you for saying that.
Well, Moses, Natalie, Alma, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it. On behalf of the largest group of Black TV and film critics, I want to thank you for joining us for this edition of the AAFCA Roundtable series.
Thank you so much.